right, and we are back again. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
And this is the Back Again Sequel Podcast. This is the only podcast that takes a sequel from the past and finds out if it was worth going back again. And today we are doing the follow-up to the 2000 Miss Congeniality, and we are doing Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous.
FBI agent Gracie Hart was trained to handle any situation.
You know you can't wear a swimsuit on this mission, right, Hart?
Except this one.
Aren't you gonna be here in like 10 minutes?
I thought we were moving at kind of a normal speed. Is it the way I snort? I mean, because I don't have to snort.
Hart, have you been crying?
No, I don't cry. I don't even have tear ducts.
Ain't nobody crying.
But even though she's feeling alone, she's more popular than ever.
You're that Miss Congeniality lady.
She's FBI!
Now, the Bureau's had a lot of bad publicity lately. You could be the new face of the FBI.
Miss Congeniality 2 comes out in 2005. It's written by Mark Lawrence. It's directed by John Pasquan. It's starring Sandra Bullock, Regina King, Heather Burns, Enrique Maricino, William Shatner, and Diedrich Bader. Gracie Hart was never thrilled to have to...
You sound like the trailer guy.
I know. Gracie Hart was never thrilled to go undercover as a competitor in a beauty pageant. Now Gracie, who works for the FBI, is dealing with some very public attention thanks to her waltz down the runway. Her overnight celebrity does not impress her new partner, Sam Fuller, but the pair has to put aside their differences when one of Gracie's former beauty queen pals, Cheryl Frazier, turns up missing and the FBI is put on the case. So before we go into the plot and talk about this sequel, let's briefly not talk too much about Miss Congeniality, but Miss Congeniality comes out in 2000. It is by all accounts like a successful movie. But you know, this is one of those movies where even though it has like a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't think that's very accurate. It's been pretty much like in the zeitgeist, I feel like, for the most part. And when you look at Sandra Bullock's career, I don't know if it's like I don't know if this is like the go-to movie that people think of when they think of Sandra Bullock.
I think it is. I think it's the most recognizable.
It's the most recognizable is what I was going to say. And overall, it had a pretty good return at the box office with a budget of $45 million. It made a box office of $212.7 million. So
pretty solid.
It's pretty solid. And, you know, after the success of this movie, she went on to make another movie with one of the writers, Mark Lawrence. And while they were working on another movie together, they were talking about the ideas that they could do to make Miss Congeniality 2. Mark Lawrence is one of 3 writers who wrote the first Miss Congeniality, and he's the only one that returns to write the second. Here we are. What is this sequel, Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous, about? I can tell you that it's not going to be about going undercover, again, like the first one is. You know, this whole Miss Congeniality franchise is very similar to another franchise we've done on this list, which is Sister Act. Only difference is obviously Whoopi Goldberg's not a cop, but it's still 2 people kind of going undercover, putting on a shtick that aren't initially like interested in it, and then they learn more stuff about themselves and they actually end up being pretty good at it or contributing, you know, something to whether it be the nuns or the pageants, the pageant queens. But they both are similar in the sense that their sequels have nothing to do with the first one. At least with this one, with Miss Congeniality 2, even if they promoted it as you're going to see Sandra Bullock get into another get-up again, and now Regina King's going to get into a get-up, because I remember that was like a big selling point of it. It's like she's back in the act, almost like Sister Act. Yeah. But that doesn't even happen until the 3rd act of the movie, and it's very brief.
Listening to this, it sounds like you just want a rehashing of the first movie, which is just pageant stuff again.
No. I'm just saying, like, if you're not going to do that movie, because they weren't doing that for the longest time.
It's false advertising.
It's false advertising first, and also you didn't need it. Like, if you're gonna tell this whole different story where really being dressed up has nothing to do with this or putting on an act, then don't do it. Why cram it at the end just because, like, we're familiar to it?
It's like, yeah, it's just like the song she sings where it's the, you're my partner, you have to like me. And it's, there's so many parts where that could have had more of a meaningful impact if they had called back to it earlier. But they just save it and they just cram it into the very end because, like, you'll recognize it from the first one.
It is interesting what things they decide to repeat in this second one, because for the most part, this is a wildly different story. And I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's just too much plot or it's just not interesting. I think one of the biggest things is that there's no stakes. Now, and there are stakes like in a general sense, but there's no stakes in like the execution.
William Shatner's gonna die. That's your stakes. Also former Miss USA, but mostly William Shatner.
Well, here's a big thing, just to talk about the actual villains of this sequel, right? The mystery of the first Miss Congeniality was we didn't know who the bad guy was. In this second one, we immediately find out who the villains are.
Yeah.
And they're played by Nick Offerman and Abraham Ben Ruby, who I know from George of the Jungle. But basically, these two guys get hired to kidnap William Shatner and the former Miss America.
Just William Shatner.
Well, that's a reveal later that we can talk about. But they're hired to kidnap William Shatner and the former Miss America winner, Miss Rhode Island. And after they successfully kidnap them, they take them to the guy that hired them. But then he calls like Nick Offerman stupid and it offends him. So then they just like threaten to kill that guy. And I guess they're just taking over operations of this kidnapping now.
The guy was just a loan shark.
Yeah, he's a loan shark and he hires these two goons or whatever. But the point is that once we reveal that these two goons are our bad guys, like I think they get maybe 4 scenes in the whole movie. But the point is like we just know who the bad guys are. So we really only cut back to them when we need to like move the plot forward. And that's like an element of the stakes that's just like taken out of the movie. So when we're not invested in solving something, what are we spending most of our time doing? And what we're doing is we're going to watch Gracie Hart, I guess, go on a book tour and become the face of the FBI publicly for 10 months.
Well, do we need to go into the plot now?
Well, that's the plot. That's all it is. When we first meet Gracie Hart again, she's
on a normal mission.
She's on a normal mission. It's kind of same as the first one. It goes sideways, but they end up stopping the bad guys. And then after that,
it goes sideways because she got recognized.
She got recognized
for
because
being a public figure.
She's been very recognized since the events of the first movie. You know, women are just coming up to her during her missions, asking for her autograph.
Her boss, Ernie Hudson, says, "We got to take you out of the field because you're causing too much mayhem because people can easily recognize you. But we're going to make you the face of the FBI because you're giving a lot of good press lately." Even though she's like socially awkward.
Yeah.
She's like a loose cannon, and she usually causes a lot of problems, even though she usually gets out of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess the pageant was a big success. So they want her to be the public face of the FBI now. So she's going to go on like a press tour.
Well, even with that though, it's like her biggest conflict in this first act when we meet her again is the fact that, like you just said, that she is like publicly known, but she doesn't necessarily want to do that. Like she still wants to be a field agent. She talks about she talks about how much she wants to do that, and I guess it's the
hero's refusal of the call.
What happens that like pushes her over the edge to, I guess, submit and do this is the fact that Benjamin Bratt, Eric Matthews, breaks up with her over the phone. And her heart is broken, and that's what sends her off to, I guess, just do this for 10 months because she needs like a distraction, I guess.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't really have a crisis of character until she gets like broken up with, and she's so heartbroken that she decides to then go on this like press tour, right? And let's go ahead and talk about the fact that Eric Matthews does not return. He doesn't return, and Michael Caine doesn't return. And even though Benjamin Bratt's character in the first one doesn't really like hold up well, because he's such a slime ball and he's such like a misogynist and he's such like I don't know, he's just kind of a creep in the first movie. By the end of the movie, they're going to start dating and they kiss each other. So at the beginning of this movie, the sequel, there's a little bit of banter about that. She's thinking about going to the Poconos with him for the weekend, and she's asking the other agents, like, do you think he would like that? And do you think like blah, blah, blah? And even another agent says like, oh, you two lovebirds, you're in love. Where is he, first and foremost?
He's probably just on like another mission.
Well, what we find out is that he got a job in Miami or whatever, like running his own department. But either way, it's just such like a workaround because it's like, okay, we can't get Benjamin Bratt back, so let's have him break up with her over the phone.
And there's not going to be any dialogue from his side. It's just going to be completely one way to show that the events of the first movie have not changed her. What happens is they try to mix in the fact that they can't bring Benjamin Bratt back with her character motivation. And you're not supposed to mix those two things together. The breakup shouldn't have been directly influencing her decision to do this, whatever.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, I understand that if the first one had this, like, twist of a love story, in theory, it is nice that the second one is going to be more of, like, a buddy cop movie, right?
Yeah.
Because she's getting Regina King's character to, I guess, be her bodyguard, and they hate each other. They're always like, she's always punching Hart in the face.
If they had thought through the breakup, it'd be one thing, but it just felt like so much of an afterthought.
It's almost like we have this leftover fat from the first movie that we got to take care of really quick. But they don't even set up Regina King's character with Sandra Bullock as far as what their dynamic is. We get a scene of them, like, when they first meet, they're in that training room, which is another callback to the first movie, just being, you know, in a training room. Like,
well, it's
punching
misdirect
stuff.
because they don't end up fighting. So it's actually very clever.
But it probably would have been better if they did fight, because that's how she gets...
No, because then it's just redundant.
Well, it's a copy of the first one. That's how she falls in love.
Yeah, if they had done a thing where she falls in love with Regina King now, that would have worked.
So anyway, she goes on this book tour for 10 months. After the 10 months, is that when William Shatner and Cheryl get kidnapped?
Yeah.
And then they find out on the news that they've been kidnapped, and since obviously that's her like old friend, she's gonna try to solve the case while also doing the tour. But now that they're in Las Vegas,
it's complicated because they're in Vegas.
Well, they're in Vegas now because that's where the kidnapping happened, and they need her to be like the face of this operation. But that other fucking stooge, the other agent that's in charge in Vegas, he's the one who also seems to be like a press junkie kind of guy who loves being on camera, right? That's the whole reason why at the end of the movie, after the case is solved, Sandra Bullock no longer wants to talk to the press, and then the other agent guy is talking to the press, and then she pushes him into the lake or whatever.
And that is how we do it in New York.
Who do you think I am? I lived in New York.
Yes, the agency wants Sandra Bullock to be there, but yeah, this guy is like he wants to be the face of the investigation.
Okay.
It's his.
Okay, so she's been doing the book tour for 10 months, and then the kidnapping happens, so then she gets sent to Vegas, and because like the stakes are a little higher, she gets a bodyguard, which is Regina King. But in theory...
Well, they're also... I think she's also there because they're partners. Or no, they're not partners.
No, she's just her bodyguard, and in theory, they haven't seen each other for 10 months. Because they have that initial meetup in the training room, they fight, 10 months go by.
I guess.
And then Regina King becomes her bodyguard.
I'm okay with that.
But they're still like, oh, you again. I remember not liking you because we had that scuffle in the training room.
But now we get to know each other because we're stuck together. Oh no.
That's the plot of the movie. And to be honest, like, you know, Sandra Bullock is going to continue to try to work the case while she's just supposed to be the face of the press.
Well,
and then the FBI agent's going to be like, you're off the case. Like, don't work this case. And then, you know, at the low moment when they're going to get sent back to New York, they have a realization. They go back. They solve the case. They find William Shatner and Cheryl. They save the day. And then the movie just keeps going on to where Sandra Bullock then visits like a little girl who came to one of her book tour signings and
takes back all the advice she gave her.
Yeah, she gave her advice initially at that book signing, which was like, if you want to get ahead in this world or in this life, you have to put your hair up and look pretty and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the movie, she visits the little girl again, and she's like, if you want to be happy, don't listen to what I said earlier and put your hair down.
Okay, I think I find, like, talking about it made me realize my problem with it. When Sandra Bullock, when her character is miserable, she does not act like her character would. Okay. She hides in the Miss Congeniality like persona, which there's no real motivation for her to do that, other than that identity has just like consumed her.
Well, the motivation should have been rejection and acceptance, right? Because at the end of the first movie, she learned to kind of like accept herself a little bit more and also learned to care about others. And in this one, it should have been she learns how to accept herself. Because once she goes back to her regular life and she experiences rejection from Benjamin Bratt, it would make sense for her character to want to go back to a persona where she got love, which was being Miss Congeniality.
And I guess that actually makes sense, yeah.
Right?
So you're saying they made the right call.
I'm saying, like, on paper and in theory, that is probably where you would take the second story. Yeah. But the movie's way too long. It has way too many different, like, subplots.
Yeah.
And by the time that they have those conversations, like when Regina King is like beating her up at the airport before they're getting sent back to New York, and she's like,
I'll take it back if you admit one thing.
What?
Oh, God! For the first time in a long time, you feel like the real Gracie Hart.
And then they're choking each other, and Sandra Bullock's like, you're right. I really didn't feel like she had enough struggle as Miss Congeniality again to make her be like, you're right, I was not happy being this person, because I don't know. We don't really see it. We see her kind of still doing everything she wants to do. She's still working the case, and she's finding out information.
Yeah,
she's following up on leads.
She's not actually like suffering any like setbacks.
And she's not delusional in the sense where people are challenging her on like her morals or ideals from the first one. And she's like ignoring them or pushing them away and being too caught up in the miscongeniality lifestyle. The only time we see that is when Regina King is like punching her in the face and she's going like, you messed up my makeup. Like that's the only example I can see is like, you're not being the old Gracie Hart would fight back. And they should have maybe made more of a point for Regina King to say that, like, you used to be Gracie Hart. You used to be the toughest woman in this bureau. And now I have to be, because you won't fight back anymore.
I get what you're saying. They should have done something in that vein, yeah.
Like, she gives her that whole speech about, like, you didn't solve the case in the first one because you got lucky. It's because you're a good detective. Even though the realization that these kidnappers weren't actually after Cheryl. They're actually after William Shatner, which Sandra Bullock figures out after...
in the most convoluted connection.
Regina King is sitting at the airport with her, and one of the agents has to separate the two of them because they're fighting too much. And Regina King says, well, I can still lean over you and shoot her. And then Sandra Bullock goes, wait, what did you just say? Did you just say lean over? That reminds me that in that footage of William Shatner and Cheryl getting taken, the bad guys were leaning over Cheryl to get to William Shatner. And even she tried to like grab one of the guy's hands and do this defensive maneuver I taught her. So she was actually trying to save William Shatner.
Yeah, which is like, I don't know what the right word. It's not a part of like a real mystery.
Yeah,
that's just something that would happen in a normal movie. And the way they connect the dots is just such a stretch.
Well, and we've already said this. Like, that's the problem with the second one is like there is no mystery, and that's why it doesn't feel like there's really big stakes because they just kidnapped Cheryl and William Shatner, and they just make like a ransom video, and then they just want $5 million. But then when she catches the bad guy and has like Nick Offerman like on the floor handcuffed, he immediately gives up where Cheryl's at. There's no like twists or turns or anything.
It really felt like they just wanted an excuse to like let's just make the character look good and let's not try too hard.
Yeah.
And they just strung a bunch of set pieces together.
Well, what also kind of bothered me, even just continuing on these arcs and also just like what the point of the movie is supposed to be, they make a point to do this slow motion reveal when Gracie Hart gets back into her FBI uniform. So Regina King gives her the whole shtick about like, you missed being the old Gracie Hart. And now we're going to have the two of them back in their FBI like outfits, like walking in slow motion towards the car. Very similar to the slow motion walk of the reveal as her as Miss Congeniality for the first time. And this is supposed to be like, okay, she's back in her outfit. She's back being true to herself. And now she's going to go solve this case. What do we have to do to solve this case now? Oh, we have to get into drag and go undercover at a drag open mic show. And it's like, what story are you trying to tell?
The climax should have been her like being in the field or something, and then Regina King has to be the one in.
Exactly. Sandra Bullock should not have been in it again.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, it would have made more sense for Regina King's character to try to face those fears, right?
Exactly. Like, can you imagine how good that climax scene would have been if it was like actually just Regina King on the stage having to fend for herself instead of Sandra Bullock just dancing around her looking like an ass.
Yeah. And it's also funny too because like this is the second movie on this list that we've done where Regina King is kind of like thrown into the storyline. She was also on our Legally Blonde 2 episode. Like, she's just 0 for 2 with these comedy sequels, and I feel bad for her. And it's not to say anything about Regina King. She's a great actress.
She's pretty good in them, honestly.
Yeah,
they're just like they themselves shit products.
So bad. And it's funny too because even kind of go back to like, because we were talking about this being more of like a buddy comedy, Sandra Bullock has talked about in regards to the sequel what kind of story she wanted to tell, and she's quoted as saying, I want women to be able to do the same thing that men get to do in comedies and say that's a comedy. Why does it always have to be a romantic comedy? Why does the girl have to end up with the guy? Why can't it be a buddy film? And it's like, yeah, I agree with that. But in the execution of the second one, it's like...
Woo, Lordy. Ladies' time.
That's not a comedy. But I will say there were genuinely moments in the second one that did make me laugh. Obviously, the biggest person is William Shatner again. He's really funny. Every line of dialogue he says.
He's 2 for 2 when it comes to the comedy sequels.
Yeah, because he was also on Airplane 2 as well. And he's just like, I don't know, just a solid comedy presence.
I don't know, he like knows what he's in.
Yeah.
He knows what he's supposed to do.
And to be honest, there was like other characters in the movie, like background characters or people that just had random lines of dialogue that I thought
like the one-line characters were pretty good.
Yeah, there's like
there was a big laugh from me for one or two of them.
There's a whole sequence where Sandra Bullock is chasing what she thinks is a Dolly Parton impersonator, and then very similar to the first one, she is going to tackle this person on camera, and it ends up being the real Dolly Parton. And after she's like straddling Dolly Parton on the ground, a random woman just comes up to Dolly Parton and says,
"Excuse me, Miss Parton. Here You Come Again was my wedding song. I just love you."
Let's leave Miss Parton alone.
Yeah, I love that song too.
It's just like random little moments like that that I find actually like really funny.
Mine was a woman was trying to get Gracie's autograph, and she says, "Oh, can I have your autograph? My mom is such a huge fan, and it's so rare to win her approval."
Yeah. But to be honest, scenes like that are just so long, and they're just not that enjoyable. So yeah, you might get like a funny joke once in a while from like a random featured background.
But yeah, there's not a lot of support from the actual like plot when it comes to the comedy. It's all like the throwaway moments.
And then like just the last thing I want to say just about like these characters also is, Michael Caine, like I said, doesn't return. And instead he's replaced with Diedrich Bader. And this franchise just loves taking straight men and having them play gay makeup artists, don't they? And Michael Caine, I think, is definitely missed in the second one because he, regardless of how you feel about him playing that character in the first one, he is funny in the first one. And I don't know, I just felt like it was really missed, and they're just going to kind of replace him and double down with like an even more gay character. But I don't know, it's just kind of boring. And then it gets to the point where like he's helping them do the mission, and I guess he's only helping them because he just likes Gracie Hart because he's been her like main stylist for like over 10 months.
Yeah.
But he's also just gonna like go rogue and like solve this mystery with them and like help them out. And
well, he's a stylist for the FBI. How loyal is he really to like the FBI?
Well, the only stylist thing he contributed, I guess, was when Sandra Bullock got in the old woman makeup to go interrogate or question William Shatner's mom at the nursing home. And
I think he was helping more than that.
Well, but what I'm saying is he's a makeup artist. So in these movies, he should be providing more like undercover outfits and like disguises and stuff like that.
True, yeah.
But you would think that we would get more of a montage like that because she's so recognizable, she would have to put on a bunch of different disguises.
See, in our alternate ending where she has to go be the field agent, she's wearing his disguise. So then he is actually contributing something.
Yeah.
Instead of just enjoying being in drag.
Let's go over this again, all right? We're not leaving until we find and interrogate Dolly Parton. All right, that's something I never thought I'd hear myself say. Jeff?
I'm back up. If Dolly tries to flee, I got her.
I'm gonna check out the dressing room.
I'm really just here to have a good time.
What's interesting about this sequel is most of the time when we do the budget in the box office, the budget doubles. But like I said earlier, the budget for the first one was $45 million and it made $212 million. This second one also has a budget of $45 million.
Okay.
And it only makes $101 million back at the box office, but that's still
not a huge loss.
It's not a huge loss, so it's still somewhat financially successful. The Rotten Tomato scores are a little different. Like I said, the first one has a Rotten Tomato score of a 41%, but it has an audience score of 69%, which I think is more accurate.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think that first one's like bad movie. Like
I think the first one's pretty solid.
It's pretty solid. Like, there are certain things that don't like hold up very well from a character standpoint, but the plot overall is good. This second one though,
I bet it got a 13.
It's got a Rotten Tomato score of a 15%, but it's got a 43% audience score.
Yeah. I agree with the 13 or 15, whatever it was.
Yeah. It's obviously lacking, but I think in general, it's got no energy to it. When you have the stakes of like an actual murder, it makes you, and you're going undercover to solve something, it makes us as the audience go like, ooh, well, I want to see her struggle with this new identity and then overall solve the mystery. They kind of have the same thing in the second one where there is like a life at stake with William Shatner and Cheryl, but they only cut back to them like 2 to 3 times, and then each time William Shatner does like the last line of dialogue, it's usually a joke. So those scenes aren't even treated really like seriously because they're just like William Shatner improvising. And then it's like the only reason we have a ticking clock is because Nick Offerman decides to bump up the deadline of when they have to pay. like there's a random scene where it's like, we just got a call. The deadline's been moved to tonight, so they're gonna kill him tonight.
But yeah, it's not enough, and it really falls apart like toward the halfway point.
I really don't. It's kind of muddled. Like, I don't understand the point was in regards to like, oh, when she goes to that little girl at the end and she tells her to put her hair back down and just be herself and accept your beauty. It's like, okay, that's great. And I get why Sandra Bullock initially told her to put her hair up and now she's telling her to put her hair down. But does Sandra Bullock put her hair back down?
I don't know.
And she looks good. The only thing in the beginning of the movie that insinuates that she's still kind of a mess is when Diedrich says, like, you've got ketchup on your shirt again.
You know what I mean? It's really
not...
weird. It's like she's at the beginning of the sequel, she's back to her normal schlubby self.
Yeah.
But then when she goes into like mourning for her relationship, she adopts the Congeniality personality.
Prettier.
And then by the time where it's impossible to tell if it's an act and like a coping mechanism or if it's who she actually is embracing.
Exactly.
Because the message is not clear on like if there's like a middle ground or if like one side should be favored over the other. And so when on top of that, she's giving this little girl mixed messages with her literal like the message of the movie, it's like, what does Miss Congeniality really stand for?
I would like to share with you something I learned just recently. A little lesson, which is people may care about people who care about themselves, but I just don't really care about those people.
What? I guess overall, maybe one of the themes of the movie was that like friendship.
Oh, what did she say that I laughed at? Would he? She's talking in relation to her boyfriend, former boyfriend. She's talking to Regina, Sandra Bullock is, and she's saying like, would she questions, would he have even come back to help me if he didn't like me in that way?
Oh, I saw.
If he didn't have special feelings for me. And the idea is that yes, any decent human being, especially an agent who's trained in this type of like situation, would come back and help you. Now, the way she is treating her ex is so baffling.
Wouldn't it have made more sense for Sandra Bullock in this movie not to question if he ever liked her based off of if he saved her or not at the end of the first movie, but if he ever liked her because she was hot.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because then she could have said something like, he only gave me the time of day when I was a pretty, and then once I was pretty, he got bored with me and probably moved on to the next girl. That actually would have been interesting and been more
that would have made more sense.
More in line with the whole second movie of what they're attempting to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess they just need an ex-boyfriend to motivate the idea that what we don't need are partners, romantic partners, what we do need are friends.
Sure.
Right? Because she's going to save her best friend, and then Regina King never had friends, and now the two of them are going to be friends. I don't know. In regards just to the chemistry between Regina King and Sandra Bullock, I thought it was pretty like basic and flat. Like I didn't really think there was... The most fun we ever had, I felt, was when Regina King was like beating the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And just watching Sandra Bullock's reaction to that. And I really wish they would have had like a bigger fight. Like a crazy, like they live over the top kind of fight that went on too long or whatever, because maybe the answer to the both of them is they're both super aggressive people. And Sandra Bullock says like violence isn't the answer, but Sandra Bullock's character is inherently a violent person.
Yeah.
Right?
There's so much contradictory like messaging.
She's like punching the shit out of the bag in the first one, and then she learns to be more ladylike. In this one, she's all ladylike, and they're insinuating that she's forgotten who she is. And who she is a badass. So shouldn't she like physically knocked some sense into her from Regina King, and they fight?
The whole vision, the face of the FBI can't be seen fighting. That contradicts that.
But it would have been cleaner arcs for the both of them, because then when you go into that third act, you have Sandra Bullock returning to like the more brute, like fighting person, and then you have Regina.
Well, she can do that when she's in disguise in the field. In our alternate ending.
But when you have that, then you also have Regina King then has to put on an outfit and become more ladylike.
Yeah.
It's just...
We should have been there when they were writing the script.
Stop! All right. Fuller, violence is not the answer to our problems, all right?
We go to the drag club, flash our badges, and interrogate her?
And if she doesn't cooperate?
Violence.
That doesn't make sense.
So as always on this podcast, we ask 3 questions that lead to a final vote of was it worth going back again? And the first question is, does it work as a sequel? I'll start off this one, and it's just weird. I mean, like we've said that there's a lot of things that actually like work as a sequel in the movie. I don't know. I'm just gonna say no. It doesn't work as a sequel. It doesn't make there's good ideas in there, but they really just like bog it down with like so many subplots. And when they try to earn those moments of the point of the movie, there's too many things that have contradicted along the way. So I'm just gonna say no. It doesn't work as a sequel.
I think I would say it does.
Okay.
I think there was enough effort put into the premise alone. Because the character, I'm essentially just basing this all off the fact that they at least don't reset the character.
Yeah.
So
that is, I know.
That's honestly enough for me, especially for this season where the effort has been so low on just making a functional sequel.
See, I feel the opposite. I feel like I've been so lenient this season with people.
See, I save up my leniency for when I feel like it really is deserved.
Yeah.
And now I'm using it. It would have been nice to have like I don't think we got a single moment alone with her.
No.
Yeah.
Besides her breakup when she's on the phone talking.
Well, that's not alone because she's with she's technically.
Well, she's reading when she's reading the letters, maybe. She's reading the letters and she lets
that's
out
like
a little
that's
smile.
like a moment.
Yeah, but she doesn't have any like life-changing moments, I think, in the second one, whereas in the first one she does when she's like talking to the girls and getting to know them. It gets a little bit more invested.
Yeah, exactly.
So that sounds like it's going to get an X and a check. So the next question is going to be, is it enjoyable / entertaining? And I'm going to make this one quick and I'm going to say no. It really was long, and even though there were probably some bigger laughs in the second one.
No,
I mean individually, like some of these jokes were
so.
funnier, but no, I don't think it's enjoyable / entertaining. It's just really boring, and it just takes forever to get to the point. And when you get to the point, you're like, oh, that was the point.
No, it's too bloated. I was telling you during the time we were watching it way back when that they could have just saved a whole bunch of time by having Nick Offerman play the Dolly Parton drag queen.
Yeah.
Because then that takes like one step out of the equation at least.
Yeah.
But there's so many set pieces. They're in Vegas, so there's so many places they got to go to. It really is just like a cash grab.
Yeah.
And that's not enjoyable or entertaining.
So that sounds like it's going to get 2 X's. So the last question is, does it need to exist?
No, like you said, it's I was literally thinking like a second ago, is there like a universe where there could be like a spin-off TV show of this where there's enough content based on the idea of Miss Congeniality?
Only no, because Miss Congeniality is like, I feel like a term specific with like pageantries. If anything, you could do a series of just about an undercover agent who has to go undercover.
Yeah, for like, I guess it could be different. Like, yeah, it would be like different crazy things like pageants, but not pageants all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there really is, I think I'm basing mine kind of around that idea of like, there really is only one way to do this idea, kind of the same with Sister Act. And when you're doing these sequels, you're just bending it too much to the point where it's barely functioning as a sequel. It's not entertaining to watch, and it just kind of lessens the impact of the original source material. So no.
Yeah, and I mean, even just looking at the word need, like she needs to go undercover in the first one because she's the only like female agent who can get away with this, and like they're so short on time that she has to do it. They don't need to
do anything
in the second one. They don't even really need her. Because
she needs to save her friend.
Well, if she was just on the actual FBI like case, she would have solved them, but it's not like they were that far behind. They did end up finding where Nick Offerman and Abraham were staying, and they're not like wildly incompetent. They just needed to like include her because she's good at her job, and they probably could have just like solved this.
The assistant director had a fat head, so.
But in the first one, they follow the red herring. They think that they've caught the guy, so they cancel. They cancel the investigation. But
the FBI is incompetent. In the first one. Okay.
And Sandra Bullock's the only one who still thinks something's going on. The FBI is still active in their investigation when she solves what's going on, and they just show up like a little.
She's just doing it first.
She's just doing it first. So no, I don't think it needs to exist either. I think that first movie is a really just good, tight movie that kind of does everything you said, where if you're going to have this kind of story, it only works like one time. And I appreciate the fact that they didn't try to do it again a second time, but they really just, you can tell they had nothing to say.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be 1 check and 5 X's. So that's going to get 1 giant X for not worth going back again. I don't know. I mean, this was your first time seeing the Congeniality verse. I've honestly only seen the first one. I've never seen the second one. This is my first time, but now I understand why. As always, thanks everyone for listening. If you like this episode, you can like, subscribe, and comment below. You can listen to all episodes of the Back Again Sequel podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can watch these episodes with video on YouTube. Just subscribe to WAG Productions. Also follow us on our Patreon page where you can listen to the episodes that are blocked on YouTube with video. Just subscribe to www.patreon.com/WAG Productions. And outside of that, you got anything else to add, Drew?
Go on if you don't want to spend the next few years in prison for obstruction of justice.
Which prison?
All right, we will see you next time.
I'm back again.